And here to discuss that and so much more is Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation. Joins us now. Kevin, good to have you back with us, sir.
Vince, it's always great to join you.
And
And I just have to say, Tom Homan needs to do media training for conservative policymakers too, right?
Yeah, big time. How about just tell the truth in a blunt way and embarrass the interviewer by just being awesome? Yeah, he's really good. So, Kevin, first and foremost, before I get to Tom Homan, how elated are you about the result from last week?
Well, I'm elated, not just for the obvious reasons we needed the political win, those of us who care about the American future, but secondly, I think this is the beginning of a golden era of conservative policy and governance if, in fact, we're able to harness this popular will and impose it on the uniparty in Washington.
Yeah, it's going to be a very big deal, and it has the makings of already turning out really well. I'm liking some of the hires. Tom Homan is among the people I'm really excited about because he has a proven track record of really caring about this issue and being good at dealing with it. That is America's borders. Tell me your thoughts on Tom Homan and the selection to become the Border Czar.
Even if I were not friends with Tom Homan, even if he were not a colleague at Heritage, I would say the following. When you realize that in order to restore the rule of law at the southern border, you have to pay equal attention to restoring the rule of law in the interior of the country, something I learned from Tom several years ago, you realize there's really only one person who understands that, who has done it, who has President Trump's trust, and who also, evidenced by his pushback on that 60 Minutes reporter, has the media ability to explain this in a way that Americans want to have it explained. They don't want Washington speak. They don't want wonky academic speak. They want it spoken as their local sheriff. And
Yeah.
obviously Tom is someone who kind of fits the bill as well. In other words, it's the lesson of the election, which is that Americans want to wake up in a normal country. And someone like Tom in particular, is so common sense. He's so normal. He's like your next door neighbor.
Yes.
You go call if your house is on fire, or if you need anything, he'd give you the shirt off his back. That, I think, is a really underappreciated aspect of Tom's leadership, in addition to, obviously, his leadership experience in that particular policy area.
And he has an excellent understanding of the law. He runs circles not only around reporters, but around members of Congress. All of his congressional testimony has been fabulous as he teaches AOC how the law works. And he's got this sort of blunt, masculine candor, which is really appealing. And it's I love that he's going to be in this role. So my guess is, and the reason for that is, my guess is that he's going to play a large role in getting this particular problem under control very quickly, Kevin.
I think he's such a powerful hire, Vince, that you will see a decrease in attempted border crossings even before Inauguration Day. Such a big part of this is trying to inspire self-deportation. There's been a lot of talk through the election cycle about how expensive it would be. Obviously, the reporter asked that question. It's actually going to be less expensive than we think if someone like Tom working for someone like President Trump, both of whom are dead serious about returning people back to their home countries. Part of it is sending the signal to the cartels, to the government south of the border who are complicit in this, that the status quo, as it's been the last 3.5 years, is over. And so I actually think we're going to see, not even a year into the administration, 3 or 6 months into the administration, great success at reducing the numbers.
Yeah, I really hope so. Anyway, so I'm happy about him. I know you are too. Let me move on to the state of the Senate leadership race. If there's a lesson from Trump's reelection with this big mandate that he's received, it's that the American people are tired of Washington ignoring them. And they're saying, wait a second, you're going to pay attention to us. And this week, the Republican leadership race is going on in the United States Senate, where it looks like they'll have 53 seats come January. And there are 3 men who have thrown their hat in the ring to become the next Republican leader, replacing Mitch McConnell in the role. Those are John Thune, John Cornyn, and Rick Scott. That vote is supposed to take place tomorrow with a secret ballot. And there are a number of senators who have already made statements anonymously to the media who are annoyed that the public is even paying attention to this vote and essentially sending the signal that we need to butt out of it. It's not our business. What do you think about this battle, and how should it end up, Kevin?
I think the senators or staffers saying that must not have been paying attention the last 7 days, because one of the lessons from the election isn't just that Trump and Vance won, but that the American people are saying that business as usual in Washington has to come to an end. And so, as you know, on Sunday, I did something we don't usually do at Heritage, which is endorse Senator Scott for majority leader. We usually stay out of those races out of respect to the members to handle their own affairs. But we thought in this instance, particularly considering that Heritage and Heritage Action are so in touch with the grassroots, that they needed to know that something's got to change. And so we're obviously pulling for Senator Scott. If, however, either Senator Thune or my friend from my Texas days, Senator Cornyn, prevails in that election, then whoever wins that needs to understand that Mitch McConnell's days of running the Senate and running Capitol Hill and running the Uniparty are over. That is the lesson of this election. Business as usual must come to an end, even if Senator Scott doesn't win that election.
I was looking at the Heritage Action website this weekend just to kind of get an assessment of where these guys stand in the eyes of Heritage Action, which keeps the conservative scorecard on them. And John Cornyn has a 35% score. John Thune has a 37% score. And Rick Scott comes out at 92%. In other words, adherence to conservative principles as defined by Heritage Action. That's a pretty big difference between those three.
It's remarkable. And, you know, I lead a think tank, so I like data. The numbers don't lie. And looking ahead, looking forward, it's really important for all members of the Senate who are Republicans to understand. Obviously, there's room for differences of opinion on certain bills. What there isn't room for is telling the American electorate you're going to do one thing, but then hide yourselves behind some fancy multi-million-dollar K Street funded marketing campaign that you've actually put lipstick on a pig for. That's the kind of thing that's revealed by those numbers. It's also the kind of thing, regardless of how the election goes, that Heritage and Heritage Action will be paying attention to, because it is very obvious that Trump and Vance have a mandate to lead, and we're going to be part of making sure that happens on Capitol Hill.
I saw CPAC posted this week, too, that they compared the three of them, and they talked about a piece of legislation that would have reprioritized $26 billion in foreign aid instead to domestic infrastructure projects. Rick Scott was a yes on that vote. John Thune was a no, and John Cornyn was a no. And that's one example, but it's just a good sort of way to take their temperature on, okay, which guy is going to be America first? Who's going to be on board with this agenda? And obviously, look, all of them are saying right now, I'm on board with Trump. I'm going to help Trump achieve this agenda. But Trump's experience in Washington, Kevin Roberts, is he's dealt with a lot of people, especially within his own party, who made all sorts of very big promises to him about how they were going to, deliver. And then they failed in the end. And that really left President Trump with a bad taste in his mouth.
Well, and with good reason. And there has to be real accountability. I will say, Vince, I don't think there's a better example than the one you mentioned of an issue that's so telling about where members of the United States Senate stand. This issue of sending foreign aid or even military aid to Ukraine, as you and I have talked about several times over the last few years, is so telling, particularly when it comes at the expense of our own national security, our own domestic rule of law. And the fact is, it isn't just that too many Republican senators still vote the wrong way on that. It's that they tell us that sending all that foreign aid, sending the non-military military aid to Ukraine is somehow going to keep America safer. They don't even want to facilitate the conversation on the Senate floor. You see, as you know, one of the things I do for a living is read between the lines. This is also not just about the Trump-Vance agenda, but about updating the Senate rules and the conference rules so that there can actually be amendments allowed on the floor. And look, if amendments are allowed on the floor and democracy wins, math rules the day, and the amendment author doesn't get his or her way, so be it. But there ought to be, in what is purported to be the finest legislative body since ancient Rome, an amendment process and a transparent rules process, and dare I say, a public voting process that honors the principles of the founding of this republic. Until and unless that happens, we at Heritage and Heritage Action are not going to be quiet.
Okay, Kevin, finally, just in your understanding of Washington, what is going on behind the scenes that's even making this a contest? Why isn't Rick Scott just running away with it? Does this come down to money for Senate campaigns and who controls it and who receives it? Is it just like horse trading we're seeing going on right now?
It's mostly the McConnell money machine and the grotesque financial apparatus that is K Street. The good news is that with each election cycle, there is a larger percentage of senators in the Republican conference who are aligned with a truly conservative America First agenda.
Yeah.
And so by the end of this decade, this is going to be really good. It's just we have the opportunity right now to accelerate that at the same time that we have a slim majority in the House and obviously have not just the executive branch, but two tremendous leaders in Trump and Vance who are willing to take some political risk to accelerate this revitalization of the American dream. It's the Senate that is the anchor on this right now.
All right. Kevin Roberts is the president of the Heritage Foundation. And Kevin, you've got a brand new book out as well called Dawn's Early Light, Taking Back Washington to Save America. Tell us about the book. What did you set out to achieve here?
Well, what I set out to achieve is to put a policy solution, a set of plans that actually solve so much of what you and I are talking about, but to even take a broader view than just being focused on Washington and to understand that if, in fact, in our lifetimes, Vince, we're going to live out that inspiration that comes from Francis Scott Key's phrase, Dawn's Early Light, that we, in fact, can do that if we remember that in our local communities, in our states, we need to fight just as hard. We need to spend just as much time paying attention to local politics and state politics as you do such a good job of every day on your show. All of those are important, federal, state, and local. The most important is that we regenerate our institutions, our local schools, our colleges and universities, our civic associations. If we do that, along with the good news that's happening in Washington, I think that America's best days may yet be ahead.
An optimistic message. Dawn's Early Light. I love the title, and I love our guest, Kevin Roberts. Thank you very much from the Heritage Foundation. Good to talk to you as always, sir.